Here we
Okay.
go. So thank you, everybody. I think this is almost an overwhelming, warm kind of fuzzy feeling for me that on such short notice we could put this together. And thank you. There is another person wanting to come. Let me just admit. And thank you, Arno, for your graciousness of giving your time freely. Because, yeah, under the circumstances, whatever little bit we can learn to help people and to
Yeah.
make an income is really very important right now. So we will see where this will lead us, whether we're going to make this more often or whatever. Right now we have 40 minutes and we don't know how far we're going to get with that.
Yeah.
Now Karen is taking over the view. I don't really want
Okay.
that. Um, um, so what Arno and I discussed is that we start at the beginning. So Arno will start explaining the framework of how to set an online session up successfully, and
Yes.
then systematically go through the session. And I'm going to record this. And I would ask everybody who is listening, I think the best way to go forward, write your questions down and put them afterwards onto the forum. That will give Arno or myself or whoever the opportunity to bundle the questions and to see where we might have to go deeper into the matter. Is that okay with you, Arno?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I will see how it happens. The person who speaks is coming up. So when you speak,
Okay.
we have you on the big screen. So
Oh,
any further ado, will you then please start and tell us the secrets?
absolutely, Claudia. I'm just curious, how many people do we have at the moment?
Okay, we have 30 people.
Oh, nice,
Mm.
nice. Okay, right. So I think the best starting point would be to talk about you know, the technical aspects first before we
Yes.
get into the session, right? So maybe a good starting point would be to talk about, you know, the platform, which platform to use. And I think very important is to realize that you should be versatile or comfortable enough to use whichever platform your client prefers, right? So let's say you really like Skype or you really like Zoom, and your client doesn't know Skype or Zoom. The discomfort that that might cause them in trying to figure it out might be detrimental to the session, right? So the best is to be open enough to install apps. I always ask the client which app do you use for video calling, and if they don't have one, then obviously I'll suggest one. So yes, something interesting that the video software I've been using the most is actually WhatsApp video calling, because everybody actually you know are using, or most people are using it, right? And then close second would be Skype. And then Zoom, you know, less, but also. So when it comes to WhatsApp, just a little trick that I might suggest for people is that when you are on a WhatsApp video call and a call comes in, then it will pause your session, right? It will pause the video. So what you must do is you must ask your client if they have Wi-Fi, and you do the same, is to put your phone, if you're using your phone, to put it on flight mode and then just enable Wi-Fi, right? So this, all the latest updates on the software enables or allows that, because the airplanes actually got Wi-Fi on board. So you can be in flight mode and have your Wi-Fi working. So that's a beautiful way of blocking people from calling you and then disrupting your session.
Okay,
If
okay,
that makes sense.
you have to repeat that for me. That was a little bit fast because this
Okay.
is the first I heard. I thought when you have flight mode, then there is no signals coming through to your phone.
No, not anymore. So what's happened is with the latest phone updates now, for the last, I don't know how long, probably years, you actually have Wi-Fi on the airplanes, right? So you can actually have flight mode and then switch on your Wi-Fi afterwards and have Wi-Fi while being in flight mode, which really helps for WhatsApp, because like I say, if you are busy with a WhatsApp call and a phone call comes in, it will automatically pause your video and everything. So that's something interesting to keep in mind. And then also remember that if you reject the call very quickly, then your session will just continue. It is only really a problem if if the call comes in on your client side and you are busy with trance work. In other words, the eyes are closed. And then if a call comes in on their phone, then obviously everything is going to go quiet. And they might not realize it for a little while. So then they open their eyes and they're going to have to reject that call. You can use it as fractionation to deepen the hypnosis. So, you know, even set it up front that all distractions just close your eyes and go deeper or something like that, just kind of utilizing it like that. But what I find works really well is just have them rather put it on flight mode and then enable Wi-Fi. That way you don't actually get any interruptions while you're busy with the session.
So Arno, sorry for interrupting, but I think as a host, I can see, I don't think I could ever present something and being the host at the same time, because you have to actually deal with new people coming in, people give comments. Here's another person, Warren Flood is joining us now. We're now 38 people.
Nice. I like it.
So
I like
obviously those 8 people that came a little bit later might have missed what you have said. And I think this is, even if this meeting would stop now, that would have already given me value. So if I understood you correctly, when you set up your client you for online, you suggested that we use, as practitioners, we use a platform that we're comfortable with.
Yes.
And you use mainly WhatsApp. And I tend to agree with you, because I believe the security around WhatsApp is also very good. Whereby Zoom has lately, they had such a surge from 10 million users to 300 million users within a week of the COVID story, that they probably didn't look at their security issues as closely as they need to, which probably they do now. So, and then what I learned just now is that you explain to your client that they must put their phone on flight mode, and then you only activate the call.
The Wi-Fi, then you activate the call, absolutely.
So I put my phone, I must try this out. I put my phone on flight mode, and then I can call somebody on WhatsApp.
Yes, but you must switch on your Wi-Fi afterwards. So just remember to switch your Wi-Fi on after putting it on flight mode.
So you can have your flight mode on or enabled, and you can have your Wi-Fi enabled at the same time.
Yes.
Okay, another person adding up. This is valuable information. And then you said that if a call gets, so the client won't get interrupted. And if you get interrupted, then you could use this as a fractionization. Should this happen, then you link it with the suggestion.
Obviously, if you're also on Wi-Fi, then you can do the same thing. You can just make sure you also set it up like in flight mode, then you won't get any interruptions too. But if you're using your phone's 3G or LTE, then obviously then it's different, then the calls will still come in. And if you reject a call instantly, then your session will just continue. So it won't pause for a long period of time. It'll instantly continue. You just need to reject the call immediately. The only problem with rejecting calls is that some people, when you reject calls, they keep phoning. So, you know, you might need to reject a few calls. If you're not going through Wi-Fi. So I recommend, if you can, see if you can go through Wi-Fi. What I've got, I normally use my phone. I use the actual 3G on it, but I've got as a backup. And okay, it's over there. Let me quickly grab it. I just want to show everybody how I roll, because I think this is important. Give me 1 second. Is that, oops, we don't want that. is that we actually have a backup router, right, that I carry with me. Right, can you hear me over there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I recommend, so I've got my phone is Vodacom, and at the beginning I also rolled with the MTN SIM. So I had two backups in case we had problems. So even if you've got fiber or ADSL, sometimes the service provider has issues and they go slow, and then then it's good to have a backup, right?
Sure. Now
So,
you make it complicated, huh? But tell me, that would bring me to the next very important questions. What if
right?
the phone, if the call gets dropped and the
Yes.
client seemed to be in a state of hypnosis? How do you deal with that?
Yes, that's why you want to be able to connect as soon as possible again, and then also keep in mind that what can happen is if you notice that the quality of the session, the video and audio quality is not so good, you might want to consider just switching off your video for the hypnosis part, so you just have audio. So obviously that's not ideal. You want to be able to watch your client and see your client all the time. But if you, for any reason, and this happens sometimes, it actually shows on the screen something like poor connection or something like that, then maybe consider dropping your video so that you just have audio. And I have never had, if I go to just audio, that it drops, right?
That's
It's always
interesting
been,
because Kamal is just asking about when people have different quality phones. They say that he says that sometimes they can't see the faces so clearly. So
yes.
if I understand you correctly, you say that observing the client minute movements in the faces is not that important, but truly that's only for clients that you've had before.
Yes, it's actually very important. You want to watch your client, and I think that's also something that's worth mentioning. Is if you look at me now, you will see it should be more or less just my head, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of practitioners will actually, let me see what happens if I do that. Will be like that, and can you see how small I am right now? Now, especially if you're going to be using the value of eye contact in something like the stare induction, that we cover in conversational, you want that person to be able to see you in a lot of detail. And it also kind of suggests to the client that this is what you want. You want them to be that close. You don't want your client's entire upper body. You don't want, you actually just want this section. And you want to calibrate on the minutest little changes. So obviously, when it comes to just using audio and dropping video, that is only on exceptional circumstances when the call quality is not good enough. And then you also need to make sure that this is not originating from your side. So if the quality of the connection, if you find that you use a certain service provider and you communicate with people and the quality is not good, consider trying some other service providers until you find one where the connection, at least from your side, is very good. You see, with me, I used to do all my online sessions used to be with international clients. And in Australia, New Zealand, even up in Africa, they got pretty good, internet connections. And the problem never originated from their side. If there was a problem, it was on my side. So that's why I've got all these backups and I'm showing you these routers and other SIMs and stuff. Because if I find today that Telkom is not fast, then I switch to Vodacom. If I find Vodacom is not fast enough, I switch to MTN. So I've got backups in place, backups on backups, because this is actually the worst thing. If you find that your connection is not up to scratch, then especially with international clients, it's frustrating because they're paying for this session and then the problem originates on your side.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is not ideal. So kind of make sure you do whatever you need to do to have a good internet connection.
I
Obviously,
understand
fiber
that.
is first prize.
Yeah.
But then I've also had where people have fiber, but then the kids they're streaming and they're playing online games, and then it drags down the whole connection, right?
Yes.
So also keep that in mind. You know, if you're going to be working with a client, ask them who else is in the house. You actually need to have a little bit of information
Yes.
about what's going on in the client's house or wherever we're doing the session. If you have lots of people in the background, for instance, let's say the client's partner is sitting in the very next room and they might be able to hear this client, they're not going to be comfortable sharing with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they're going to whisper, and if they start whispering, then it also pulls the quality of the session down. So you need to make sure the client understands this, and you need to set it up front that they find a spot where they're going to have privacy and will definitely be left alone.
Is that something you
and then
confirm
also,
with them when you
yeah.
or do you have a test run? Like we had a little test run with the Zoom meeting. Do you have a little test run with them to just see that your connection with them is okay? I mean, not everybody lives in Niger, you know. but when do you prepare your client with all those details, and how do you make sure that they adhere to your recommendations?
Well, you can definitely communicate. I love WhatsApp voice messages, so I'll communicate that information via WhatsApp up front. I don't actually have a test run, and I schedule extra time for the first session. So the first session, you know, I recently had a client and we battled a full 45 minutes to get the technical aspects sorted, because some of the software wouldn't work on his side, some of the software wouldn't work on my side, and we had to switch software a few times until we find the one that was actually stable on both sides.
Okay.
So my recommendation is for that first session, be versatile enough and not too strict on time. You know, it's only for the first one. After that, you can be more strict on time. But that first one, you have to sort out the technical aspects. And that's why I once again recommend going for a phone and not a laptop, because what I find with the computers is often when Microsoft does an update, the microphone stops working or the video stops working, and then you need to sort that out again. And if you only discover this when you start the session, then it's a nightmare, right? Then it's battling and you're frazzled and you're trying to find out you know, how to get it. So with phones, because the software is so consistent, I find that you really have a problem. With clients, working phone to phone, and it's also a good idea to try and work with the same kind of equipment. If you're using a phone, the client should be using a phone. If they're using a laptop, it's better if you use a laptop, because it tends to make the picture work better. Right, you know, the what do you call it, the dimensions. So yeah, and also keep that in mind with your phone. If your client this sounds so obvious, but people that don't do video calls don't realize this. If your client is keeping their phone horizontally, you should turn yours horizontally as well, right? If they're keeping it vertically, turn it vertically, or ask your client to turn it the way you want it. Because if yours is one way and theirs is the other way, it makes the picture a lot smaller. So just kind of keep that in mind when you set it up. And then also if you're using your phone, keeping it up straight. I've got this little soup bowl that I put my phone in with a power bank to keep it up straight, and that works beautifully. And then I've also got this, which I brought along for you guys. This is arts and crafts, and this is something that you can consider building for yourself. Now, this is high-tech technology. What this is, it's an old CD case, right? And then you get this kind of tape. It's a foam type tape. You buy it from the spare shop, the car parts shop. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to get in a lockdown now, but after the lockdown, you can do it. And then you stick it like that so the phone can fit in there, right? And then what happens is, because it's a CD case, it can actually swivel. Let me just open it. It can swivel, right? And because it can swivel, you can take a piece of foam and stick it in there and adjust your angle, right? So if you move the phone forward, then you get a lot higher angle. And then what you do is you take your phone, let me just do it, and you stick it in there, right? So now you've got your phone stable in a horizontal position. It's a nice little, let's call it a tripod. It's a nice little tripod to keep it stable, because you don't want to be propping up your phone on pillows and stuff when you're doing these sessions. It's not stable enough, right? It needs to be standing on something firm where it's not going to be moving. And then with your client, you're often going to find that your client will hold their phone for the full session. This is not ideal, because if they're holding their phone, their arms going to go tired. They're going to start losing the value of the actual session. So my recommendation for you is to kind of, in that first session, talk to your client, maybe find something like this little soup bowl I was talking about, little something like that, that they can actually stick their phone in to keep it stable, right?
Yeah,
So
I must
in
just
one
tell
place.
you, Hafsa is giving the suggestion that you can make one with Lego, the little Lego blocks.
Yes,
you know, these little
beautiful,
building blocks, you
beautiful.
could make it. And Kamal says he's very impressed that you are so creative.
It's arts and crafts, eh?
Okay, and hold on. What I'm going to do is, some people are taking over the meeting. Okay. Arno, are you going to talk about the earphones now? Because that was also something I found very interesting.
Yes, I want to mention that. But one last thing I just want to mention about the setup is the background, right? Some people really like looking impressive and sitting in front of a bookcase where they've got all the books they've read, or their certificates in the background, or things like that. And you actually want the background to have as little detail in it as possible.
Yes,
look, yeah, I'm sitting in my practice. This is where I do sessions from. If you look at my background, there's nothing. And that is on purpose. That is, you know, especially with the lower resolution, things might not be so clear. So a client might get very curious about a certificate or a book title or something like that, and that will draw away from the actual value of the session.
Well, I mean,
so
if you look
side,
at,
try and keep the background.
Yeah, if you look at your background, which is already taking in information away, it's making me focused. And if you look at my background, for example, there's so much busyness around here that it will be much more difficult to focus the client on what you want to focus them on. Makes complete sense.
Yeah. So yeah, that I think that is important. And then around the actual sound, like I mentioned, if the client is using noise cancelling earphones, headphones or earphones, lots of people like doing that. They must actually switch off the noise cancelling function, because if they can't hear themselves, it has a negative effect on the session. So either switch it off, or maybe just use earphones. And what some clients, if they can't hear themselves, I even suggest that they take one earphone out and they just use the one. And then you still get that benefit. So kind of just calibrate with your client. Like I said before, this little walk and talk, most phones actually come with them. It's a cheap little thing. I know for iPhone they're not so cheap, but for the Android phones they're very cheap. And it's a nice thing. Most clients are able to have that or afford that or still have that in the drawer or whatever. And that really helps, because in your client's environment, what you need to keep in mind is their environment will have a lot of distractions in it, a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things that they are used to giving their attention. And you need to try and cut that out, right? So, headphones, earphones, and even headphones, if it's like this, what happens is for an hour and a half, even going over to 2 hours session, you will actually find that some people start getting very uncomfortable. So they start sweating and it gets warm, and that's why I actually recommend earphones. Though I have quite a few clients that actually use headphones. You just need to calibrate. From your side, you need to keep in mind that if you're going to put on headphones, you will look weird to the client. Okay, so you should not put headphones on. If you have to put in earphones, you can. But generally, I recommend that you find a spot to practice from where it's quiet enough. You want to be like I am now. You must look normal. No additional technology. The technology you use should be fine for them to hear you clearly and see you clearly. yeah, I don't actually recommend using head or earphones, because remember, if there's noises in your background as a practitioner, earphones is not going to help. Your mic is going to pick it up, right? So on their side, I've actually got an interesting story. I was doing a session with a client a couple of weeks ago. It's a 16-year-old, and we started going, and he has this it's called Galaxy Buds. It's like these AirPods. It's beautiful. It's a wireless little earphones, and he's got these things in, and they're working beautifully. He's got a new Samsung S20, nice phone, everything, and then only when I induced trance that I realized there's a parrot in the room, right? I never realized the parrot was keeping quiet all the time, but once he went quiet, and obviously because he had the earphones in, you know, the parrot couldn't hear me either. So the parrot started talking because he was sitting there and it was too quiet for it. And this parrot started just chatting away and making sounds. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, wow, this client, because of the quality of his earphones, he's not hearing a thing. He's not aware of that parrot sounds. I can hear it. It's bothering me a little bit, but at least the session could continue. So that's the value of having earphones in. There can actually be quite a bit of noise in the client's background and it will be okay. But your side should preferably be quiet.
Yeah. Can I just please speak to or answer Alexa? Alexa has only done up to RSA, and she has a question with regards to the induction. Alexa, we already running out of time. We have like 8 minutes left, and we kind of decided to set up the framework right, because we know, and you should also know, Alexa, if the framework if it isn't set up right, you're setting yourself up for failure, certainly not for success. So I think this part is really important. And I don't know, Arno, how you feel that maybe we should conclude within the remaining 8 minutes about the setup, and then maybe make a new date when your big family allows for another 40-minute session, where we then maybe go into the induction and how to proceed with the session time. Would you be okay with that? There's another message from Diane. Some of my clients go sit in their car to avoid distraction and privacy on the passenger side and tilt the seat so they can relax with the phone on the dashboard. That comes from Diane Pullen. That sounds interesting. What do you think about that?
I like it. Yes, very good idea. Very good idea. Just remember to think for your client. Some clients will do silly things. A client might actually start their car in the garage to have the aircon or the heat up, and then you know it's not safe. So just kind of think for your client. Make sure the client, if they're going to be starting the car, that it's ventilated, that it's open, just for safety. And then further, absolutely, you know, some people actually do audio recording in their cars because of the quality, you know, and the quietness. So you can definitely go that way. You can even recommend that.
Fantastic, nice idea. Well, I liked it that Diane says she puts them in they sit on the passenger side, so that also might avoid accidental touching or starting or whatever. So
good idea.
We've got 6 minutes left within the setting up of the framework, the whole technical setup. We've learned so much. Thank you. I definitely learned a lot. Is there anything else that you can say? And the guys that are listening, we are now like 39 people. The chat seems to be working nicely. So if you have a question with regards to the setup, the technical setup, maybe type it in the chat box here. You can see I'm reading it out to Arno. Then if it's can be answered right away, then we can do this. Otherwise, Arno, what else do you have to say about this part of the online session?
I think it's important to understand that you need that close shot of the client, right? You know, so something that Diane just mentioned is that the client put the phone on the dash and then they recline. So what's going to happen is you're not going to see enough detail of your client's face, right? Here's something I recommend is that you do away with ideomotors when you are doing online sessions. right? If you want to see the hands and you want to actually see the fingers and have enough detail, you're going to have the client move the phone or the computer so far away that you're going to start losing detail and you won't be able to see the trance signals as effectively. So my recommendation is just do a head and shoulders, so that must be close enough. So if they're going to be sitting in the car, I wouldn't recline, because I don't know about you, but I don't want my clients too comfortable, else they go too deep, right? And then they can sit close enough so you can just get the head and shoulders. We don't actually need those fingers. Your ideomotor in this case, you rather just set up a nod or a shake of the head. That's enough. I wouldn't go, I've had questions about ideomotors before, and if you really want to use them, you're going to have that client somehow put their hand in a position where you'll be able to see it while getting enough definition of their face. Okay. If that makes sense. You need to see those facial muscles relaxing, that skin tone changing, all of the trance signals, the breathing, everything that normally happens. You need to be very, very aware of that.
Okay. Des also has an input here. She says that she switches her video off so that the client can't see her. And she can only see the client. I would assume she does that because it makes the line more stable, and the client might not get disturbed by looking how you done your makeup or your hairstyle or whatever. I don't know. So that comes from Des. And Diane just wanted to clarify that she doesn't let them recline too much. So it's just be comfortable. But I have a question, if I may, quickly, because we've got like 3 minutes left. Where do your clients normally sit? Do they sit at a desk? Because where do you position your phone or your laptop so that you have it at the angle that you prefer?
Claudia, 9 times out of 10, and I allow the client obviously to choose, so I don't really tell them where to sit, but 9 times out of 10, I find my clients prefer their bedroom, and they actually sit on their bed with their back supported. So they sit, because most of the people know that I want them to sit up fairly straight, not lying down. So they sit with their back supported on the bed, and then they prop the phone up on a few pillows on the side.
Okay.
Right? And that works beautifully for me. That you can get a nice upper body view like that, and the client is able to relax. They've got the right associations. And then I also want to add, if you're going to be blanking yourself out, remember you actually, if your client hasn't got their eyes closed yet, you need to captivate their attention. So if your screen, if they're not going to be able to see you, then the attention might start drifting, right?
No,
they might start looking around, they might start thinking.
Des was clarifying that she said, the way I understand it, it's only during the actual session when the client is in trance that she does that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. In the 2 minutes left, Arno, obviously I give you time for closing for a minute. Let me just remind everybody, we now 38 people, 39 people joining here, which I think is fantastic.
Nice.
And I'm inspired, and I hope you are too, that we maybe do more of this, because we only got to the right in the beginning still, but it was absolutely valuable. And I encourage the members who either don't know how to use the chat option in Zoom, or don't want to interrupt or don't ask questions now or only have questions later, put them on the SAIH forum. And Arno, you would then also have to have a look to summarize and see which questions need still to be addressed. And please, people, keep it to this topic right now, the setting up of the session and the technical framework, because all the rest we will do. So when you post questions now, keep it to this particular topic. Do you agree, Arno?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So then in closing, you've got a few minutes left. No, 1 minute left. What do you want to say? Should we practice this? Would you suggest that we just practice the setup?
Yes, I would definitely. You know, with a family member, with a friend, somebody maybe that is in lockdown somewhere else in the country. is a beautiful opportunity to kind of just get comfortable. I think the most important thing I can say in closing is that you should be comfortable. If you're going to be doing sessions and you feel uncomfortable, or maybe you feel out of control in that situation, your client will sense it, they will feel it, and the session is not going to work. So you need to practice this little bit, and then also, you know, don't push for deep emotional aspects. Just kind of work in a way that the client can be, you know, that you are comfortable, so the client can feel that. And if the call gets cut, there's a disruption, just go, that's right. Like, this is the most normal thing in the world. You're so used to it. You just